Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. We got a new battleship to take a look at today, and this one is absolutely incredible. It is an amazing brawling battleship at tier 8. We have several of those, but this one is very unique in that it's Italian. We're essentially a tier 8 Sicilia. We have SAP Secondaries on this one. We retain Sicilia's really nice smokescreen. It lasts a little bit longer, as well as we get battle cruiser dispersion. So we're not even that inaccurate with our main guns. You should notice throughout this video just how accurate and consistent these main guns are while retaining decent armor. That's going to be the problem here. You notice it looks a lot like the tier 7 Carciolo. And that's because it is. It's just been pulled up and given much better secondaries, a better smokescreen, and better dispersion. This ship has the same weakness of armor, though, that you have at those lower tiers. So we don't have a 32mm bow. There's a 30mm icebreaker with 26mm plating on top of it. So maybe not the tankiest. Also check out our HP pool, a little bit lower. However, I had some absolutely incredible games in it. Before we do though, let's talk about how you can get this ship. This Blue Archive event is unfortunately bringing another Wishing Wharf. I've screamed and shouted from the mountaintops alongside everyone else in this community, and Wargaming still brings back Wishing Wharfs. It's insane to me. Fortunately, you don't have to engage with it to get this ship. It's available for an Admiral pack. And while I'm not a fan of Admiral packs, at least it's not random chance if you actually get the ship that you want after you insert your credit card. Here, you do have to pay a little bit more for these Admiral packs, but at least you know what you get when you pay the money for it. The Binah is what it's called. I don't know why it's called that. I don't know nothing about these things. I've actually disabled that skin and anything to do with it. That's why you see it as M Colonna in game here as well. You can just do that in port. I'll show you towards the end of this video. But it's the same ship, and it's available right now for 24,750 doubloons. Very, very expensive. And each week, it seems, they're releasing a different Admiral pack for each ship in this event. So you're going to have to wait, perhaps, if you want to get the Le Havre or the Zarya S, I think is what the other one's called. I'm not sure yet. My pronunciation, of course, probably wrong. I apologize. But at least we have an Admiral pack. I'm going to leave it there because there are tougher battles to be fighting that I should be saving my energy for the horrific monetization. And if you haven't seen it yet, Tennessee is coming back. Only for gambling, though. We'll talk about that later. For now, though, getting back to the Colonna. This ship is incredible. These secondaries got a massive buff before it got released, and maybe got buffed a little bit too far. The hitting DPM here is surprisingly good. In spite of having base secondary accuracy, there is no improved secondary accuracy here, but it's actually got a little bit better hitting DPM than Bismarck and Tirpitz at 10 kilometers. We have 30,979 hitting DPM, where Bismarck and Tirpitz are 28,200. Atlantico is at 31,000, Key is at 32,000, something like Massachusetts, 38,000. So we're in the ballpark. This is very good. These SAP secondaries also pen 26mm of armor on the 90mm secondaries. So when you get these down tiers like this first game, it's absolutely disgusting. We're not even going to shoot this poor Zara once with our main guns, and we're going to do a ton of damage to him. It's aura damage, all right? If you thought the Varies or all these secondary experimental ships finally were going to go away, well, unfortunately, there's a new one at tier 8 to deal with, and it has a smoke to get away from these bad situations. Of course, we want to be isolating 1v1s. I'm using islands to do that right now, but if you get yourself into a bad situation, you have a minute-long or a minute-plus-long smoke screen that you can run around at full speed with. The maximum range on these secondaries is 11.3 kilometers, alongside our concealment being 11.7. Yeah, you can start to see where this reduced HP pool and slightly worse armor for a tier 8 is a bit less of a problem. Essentially, we get to pick and choose exactly which engagements we take, thanks to our concealment essentially matching our secondary range, as well as having the ability to go dark and turn away from a bad situation almost whenever we want to with this smokescreen. The smoke doesn't quite have the same cooldown as Sicilia, though, which is one of the main benefits of Sicilia's smoke over Colombo smoke. But it's still very nice to have the extra duration here. We only get 3 of them base, unlike Sicilia getting 4 base. So it's not exactly Sicilia at tier 8, but it's close. It's pretty close. And we actually get better main gun dispersion. That's the crazy part here. Is we get these 381mm guns. They are the exact same as what you get on Caracciolo as far as the AP shells go. Notice no sap on the main guns. Bit of a trade-off there, but if we can get rid of more sap, I'm all for it, especially on main guns. Battleship overmatching sap, really, really annoying to deal with in these mid tiers. And even higher tier, like Laria, for example. What do you do against that as a cruiser, man? It's crazy. So at least we don't have to deal with that with this one. It is HE and AP. The HE, really not worth using in my opinion. Fire chance is very low. And the AP on this one is just that good. Battle cruiser dispersion, 1.7 sigma. Means we're very consistent on these main guns too, without even building for them. I'm running a full secondary build here, and we're still getting very accurate, consistent salvos. This is a ship that we don't usually see that in as a trade-off, typically, for a brawling ship with a lot of secondary firepower. We're often seeing worse main guns. Think of Atlantico, Bismarck, Tirpitz. Even Massachusetts, compared to North Carolina, loses a ton of main gun accuracy to gain those secondaries and that fast cooldown on the heal. And speaking of, the heal here is completely standard on this one. So nothing buffed up about it, and a 15-second damage control. Very standard stuff. But what we have is this smoke screen, okay? It's great for getting between islands. It's great for being able to push in. It's great for being able to get away from bad situations. But more importantly, if you time these smoke screens to give yourself a reprieve while your consumables, your heal, your damage control are on cooldown, that gives you a full minute to recharge towards your next heal, your next damage control, and that's going to save you a ton of HP that most of these other secondary close-range brawlers cannot. Yeah, that's nearly 100k in secondary damage in that first game, by the way. If we think that these secondaries aren't that good, well, they can do a ton of damage, man. Although you do need to have opponents that have 26mm of armor or less, because most of the DPM is in the 90 mils. And yes, we are shooting over that gigantic mountain. I don't know what they did to secondaries, but suddenly they're shooting over everything now. It's absolutely wild. Broadside NC at longer ranges even. We can choose to open up and get spotted, or we can choose to stay dark. Well, he's broadside though. Of course we're going to open up because we have battle cruiser dispersion alongside decent pen and alpha damage on this AP. So of course we're going to open up on him. Doesn't mean every salvo is guaranteed to give you a citadel, but look at this dispersion, man. It looks so good for a battleship with secondary build. I'm not even running the main gun accuracy upgrade. No citadel there, but still pretty decent damage. I will say I tried some games with the main gun accuracy build. I didn't try for very long. Got a lot of up tiers with tier 10 carriers and subs. You can imagine how that goes. A lot of these games that I'm showing you are down tiers, or at least we're top tier or mid tier. And that's where the ship is going to perform at its best. Tier 10 is so much more passive, but not only that, our HP pool and our armor suddenly become much bigger problems as we start to face tier 9, and especially against tier 10. Against tier 6, tier 7, it's not really much of a downside at all. This is definitely more of a ship that is going to crush in those down tiers and really struggle into up tiers. Bit of a win harder style ship, I guess, is what we could say here. You're going to have a lot of fun when you face your own tier and down tiers, though. I can certainly tell you that. And again, we're under a lot of pressure here, and suddenly we just get to go dark. And we use our heal. That gives me 30, 40 seconds towards recharging our heal. Now I'm going to decide to shoot here out of our smoke screen. We've already got a decent way towards our cooldowns, and it does get me spotted because this Akazuki is so close. And we get the Citadel. That's the thing, I trust these guns, so it's actually worth it sometimes when people give you enough broadside to fire your main guns. Where a lot of the secondary brawlers, I might not if I had the luxury of having smoke to keep me dark. But we still have decent smoke fire detection here. If we fire our main guns in our smoke screen, it's a 13.6 kilometer detect. So we're still not able to, like a Napoli, fire our main guns while in secondary range. We're still able to shoot our main guns out of our smoke as long as there's not someone within that 13.6 kilometer range. Look at these SAP salvos from the secondaries though. 5k, 2k. Oh my goodness. And we actually accelerate out of those torps that were launched at 3 kilometers. Got to talk about this next, is the maneuverability that keeps this ship alive. We're going to take a big hit here from this Gneisenau because of our rudder shift, not because of our turning circle radius or our acceleration. The acceleration on this ship is quite good, but more importantly, our turning radius is 740 meters on a battleship. There's destroyers with worse turning radiuses than that. That is crazy, all right? That is really, really nice to have. Another excellent game here. This one more focused on the main guns. It's a great ship for both secondary damage as well as the main gun firepower. If you're tired of or you're annoyed with secondary brawler battleships because the main guns are so inconsistent in those games where you can't fully get into secondary range, this could be a good one for you because the consistency here on these main guns is very, very nice. The concealment also allows you to dictate the engagement much more so than you would in, say, a Bismarck or a Tirpitz or even a Massachusetts, for example. Those ones are a little tankier hulls, but they don't have the smoke screens to get out of poor situations. And looking at poor situations, how are you supposed to push in when there's submarines around, bunch of DDs, and carriers around? It's tough, man, all right? No hydro is very, very hard. And this ship, with its low HP, is going to be especially vulnerable to eating a lot of permanent damage from carriers or submarines. Torpedoes do so much damage. Unfortunately, Wargaming is looking into changing homing torps from subs, as well as carrier torps to do not citadel damage, something that is a really positive change in my opinion. It's still going to hurt a lot because of our lower HP pool. It's a small ship, it's a nimble ship, it's not the best armor, but given its size and maneuverability, typically we're not going to take massive salvos from surface ships or cruisers quite so much. These torps and dive bombers, AP bombers, they're going to do a lot of damage to you. And you'll quickly run out of HP in these brawls. So you need to be very careful when you decide to push in. Here, doing a little limit testing, I'll admit. All right, we're in a double sub carrier game. My team is not really on this flank, let's be honest here. So we're going to see if we can survive it. We're able to slow down just in time to dodge those torpedoes. Teammates help us finish off Colorado from the back line. You love to see it, as well as the DD. So maybe we can get away with this one. But our smoke screen is what allows me to get out of bad situations, right? We're not quite able to accelerate out of the way of these torpedoes here, and look at how much damage that did to our HP pool. It's not actually that much damage in absolute numbers, but because we have such low HP, it's percentage-wise much more devastating to us. And now we use our smoke because the carrier is around, and at least we have the smoke to get away from carrier strikes. They can still blind drop you, and believe me, there's been a lot of blind dropping happening these days. It is crazy how much blind fire into smokes, blind dropping into smokes has been happening. Thank you to our submarine for popping his sub surveillance, allows us to finish off that sub. Enemy Farragut pushing in, into secondary range. That could be a little scary for him. And still having enough reprieve with this smoke screen to get away from the carrier, and he goes after someone else. RAA really does suck. It's an Italian battleship. You should expect that by now. I'm not going to fire at this Farragut quite yet. I want to use as much of my concealment from my smoke as I can, and then when we get spotted, that's when we fire. I want to do as much damage for free with those secondaries as I can before firing, because if I fire early, well, then he sees me, and then maybe he has enough time, enough HP, and enough time to get that point-blank torp salvo off. I think our secondaries applied just enough pressure that he was forced to rush his torpedoes, and we managed to avoid them because we weren't spotted until we shot, and he had already launched his torps by then. Now we'll just commandeer a Farragut smoke, which is an American smoke. Lasts a very long time, very nice, and use that to secondary down this Warspite, and then get blind dropped. So that, in theory, should push us out of our smoke screen, right? Actually, no. Look at this turning radius, man. I thought for sure I was going to get pushed out of the smoke, and okay, our consumables are back up. We're feeling good. May as well, right? No, we can just stay in this smoke because the turning radius is just that good. 381s do overmatch through Warspites. These down tiers are absolutely ridiculous with this ship, by the way. It can do okay in the up tiers. You play it more like a battle cruiser, by the way, if you're wondering. It's not as fun, though, as you can probably imagine, against tier 10s, tier 10 carriers. It is very hard. Our concealment doesn't really matter against carriers all that much, so it's a little tougher. But battle cruiser dispersion, play it like a battle cruiser. You have similar to battle cruiser armor. You can make it work, although you can't play this hyper aggressive playstyle into those games. And again, we still are getting quite a few citadels, even into smaller, lighter cruisers at these lower tiers, thanks to the improved dispersion that we're having here. I trust these guns. I mean, look at that dispersion coming out of the guns there. It is so accurate. I trust these guns almost better than almost any other brawling battleship in the game. I'm trying to think of a different brawler that I would actually trust this much as the main guns, the consistent accuracy that I'm getting. It still trolls from time to time, but way less compared to Bismarck, Tirpitz, Atlantico for sure, Massachusetts even. It's really fun to play. Is it power creep? I'm not sure, considering the survivability on this one is lower. Managed to yoink a Kraken. Another E game. It's pretty low base XP requirements, around 2000 base XP, and I was still getting it. But this one was over 3k. Very nice showing from the Colonna here. And now that we're back in port, it is a little unfortunate that this Admiral pack is such a limited time thing. At least it's available, all right? I'm going to do my best to not just fully complain about all the bad stuff about this new update. Wishing Wharf, do not engage with it because, okay, here's the big problem with it. Not only do you have a very slim chance of getting the ship you want, but you have to get each ship twice before it's actually removed from the pool. So you see here, I have all these ships. Notice how I'd still get compensation even though I own all these ships on this account? If you want specifically one of the ships, you have to get very lucky, or to guarantee it, you have to get each one twice. As always with these gambling events, just please, I highly recommend you do not engage with them. It's much better. It's a lot of money, okay? 24,750 doubloons for a tier 8 battleship is crazy. We're getting closer to the end of the year, all right? We're in the second half of 2025. Remember Black Friday, Massachusetts B, guys. That ship's like 8,000 doubloons. And while this one is better in some ways, Massachusetts is still absolutely incredible. But if you do want this one, this is where it is. And highly recommend you just go with the Admiral pack, buy it outright. That way you know you're getting what you want when you put the money into the game. Horrible, horrible, horrible monetization practice from Wargaming. As you can see here, as recording this, it's 5 days. This should go up tomorrow, so you should have 4 days still if you want this one. And then, don't worry, we'll take a look at these other two. I'm not going to play the sub, but with these other two, I will be playing them next week. So some new ships. These are unique, by the way. They are unique ships for this event. They have not been seen elsewhere. It's not like the previous Blue Archive event where it was like Montana, Takahashi, I forget the other one, but they were just ships we already had seen. These ones are completely new with new gimmicks, and Colonna is absolutely incredible at tier 8. Here we can see that lack of armor like Caracciolo, and we only have a 30 mil icebreaker here. It's pretty good. Good enough for your tier. But as soon as you face 457 millimeter guns, that will get overmatched. So if you're expecting to brawl here, your citadel is pretty low and actually quite narrow here at the front as well. So you're not going to eat too much damage going, you're not going to eat too much citadel damage going broadside, but bow on in up tiers at close range, you may get overmatched. And this here all gets overmatched by battleships at your tier and below. So if they know to hit here, they're going to do a ton of damage. Also notice there's some kind of boxy elements to the superstructure. Kind of shell catchers would be the idea here. And you can take quite a bit of damage that way as well. But overall, it's quite tanky. Your firing angles are pretty good. The secondaries, you got to go to like 40 degrees to fire everything. But you're only missing out on like 1 or 2 of these turrets at 20 degrees forward. You still get this one. So pretty good firing angles. And while the secondaries don't have improved accuracy, they have enough DPM that makes up for it. It definitely makes up for it. As for the commander build, I went with something like this. I didn't see too many carriers, but when I did, I was really thankful to have this upgrade in particular. 40% cooldown on that smoke, and our heal is so nice. Damage control too. But getting back to our smoke to potentially have a minute of the carrier not dropping us or not dropping us accurately if they do decide to blind drop us. And very, very useful defensive and survivability skill for only 2 points. Otherwise, definitely going with secondaries on this one, as it is very, very nice to have that extra range. I was actually last using it as a gun build. You still get 9.9 when you run the main gun accuracy, But secondary builds still had very consistent main guns, and that gets us out to 11.3 alongside 11.7 detect. I think that synergy is good enough that this is what I would recommend that you do with the build. And then definitely trying to run that extra flag. If you don't have it, that's why we're getting that extra range. Without it, it still is 10.8, but if you can run that flag, that's where you get the 11.3 from it. Now, just before I go, I have a few complaints about this new update, all right? Bring back MSAA, please, Wargaming. If you didn't know, and you're wondering why your graphics look a little bit fuzzy, or there's some after images when you move your camera around really quickly, well, if you go to graphics settings, Wargaming added a new anti-aliasing mode. And essentially, this just gets rid of jagged edges. It smooths out the screen, and this Wargaming TSS does a pretty good job. I actually think it's better than TAA. Especially if you're in port and not moving the camera around, it does a great job for screenshots. It's quite heavy. I noticed like a 20 to 30, 20%, 15, 20% hit to my FPS when I was GPU limited. So it's pretty heavy. So if you're low on graphics power, probably don't use the Wargaming TSS thing. But crucially, they got rid of MSAA, which was a really old school technique of anti-aliasing. But it didn't rely on what they use as temporal data, but basically looking at previous frames to try and guess where little pixels should be in newer frames. And that's why you get little trails behind all of the lines and the rigging and all that stuff. And even little AA guns and that. You can get little trails when you move your camera around. And I don't like that. Personally, I see it a lot. If you don't see it, that's actually awesome, because then you get to use these new methods to get rid of all the jagged lines, and you don't have to see the downside. But I do see that downside, and I wish they would bring back MSAA. You know, some feedback to Wargaming here. If you're wondering how to get around it and how I'm currently getting around it, I'm actually using super sampling, which is where you run the game at a higher resolution than your monitor supports, and then it scales it back down to fit on your monitor. And you can do that in your graphics settings like NVIDIA control panel. So I'm running a 4K monitor, so we super sample it up, and then that way I can get rid of those jagged edges. It's really expensive on graphics horsepower, even more so. But at least I don't have to deal with these like smudgy trails behind everything when I move that I just really don't like the look of. So Wargaming, please bring back MSAA. I don't mind that you added to the game. I actually think that's really cool. But please don't take away features that we had previously. And the other thing I want to talk about is this Independence Day event, actually. It's quite unfortunate that Independence Day is only here. We don't actually get the port for it. And I find that really, really annoying. US destroyers are going to take a little bit, but if you're wondering here, I'll play some Tennessee for you guys next week, and we can talk more about this. But it is only random bundles. You have to gamble to get Tennessee if you want it. Oh, so disappointing. This is the battle I'm going to fight, all right? I'm choosing my battles, all right? Yes, it's still an Admiral pack, and it's very expensive for the Colonna here and these other BA ships. But at least they're available for a direct purchase, even if it is an inflated direct purchase. Tennessee is coming back, and it isn't. Oh, what an absolute fumble. What a miss from Wargaming here. I hate that. I hate that so much. But it's the Independence Day event, and we don't actually get the port for it. Now, you may be thinking, well, how do you know that there's a port for it? Well, we've had it in previous years, and perhaps it was too much time to update this port for the current year, right? Actually, no. They did update it. Here it is, guys. We're missing out on it on PC, unfortunately. Here's the Independence Day port in World of Warships Legends. And I apologize for the resolution here. I only have a 1080p capture card. If I played Legends more, I probably would buy a 4K one. So the resolution's not great, but here it is. World of Warships Legends, guys. And we're missing out on it on PC. And maybe this is a nitpick, but shouldn't it just be copy-paste into the game? They've already built it out. I believe they run on the same engine. This could be totally ignorant. I could be totally wrong here. But it feels like it wouldn't be that hard for us to get it. But instead, they're focused on adding to the loot box opening mechanics and adding all of these legendary different tier rarity of different ships in our game. But these little things, the events that add to the occasion, that make it seem like they're actually caring about the little parts of the development of our game, kind of are falling by the wayside, in my opinion. removing things like MSA. This is a very niche thing, of course, this MSA nitpick. It's mostly for me being, I don't know, content creator and noticing the little details about the image when I'm trying to make videos, right? Trying to make them look the best I can. But it's a little sad to see us miss out on a port like this for an event that comes around every year, and not only miss out on it just because development time was allocated to something else. No, Wargaming themselves built this port out for this year's Independence Day, and it's just not in the PC game for some reason. I was hoping that it would be with this new update. That's why I hadn't mentioned this previously when we were talking about the new American DDs and the other parts of the Independence Day event. But the new update is here, and we don't have it. Quite unfortunate, right? Wouldn't that have been cool? It's super minor. It probably doesn't matter. This is probably nitpicking, but it's a little annoying to have this new rarity system, to have the new container screen here be added, all these things that they've done to help with the loot box, the gambling side of the game, to improve that, just to miss out on some of the basic stuff that every player gets to enjoy. I find that a little disappointing. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below about that in particular. But for now, I'm going to stop complaining about the new update. I can definitely do that some more if you want in a later video, but we should probably end it here. If you're wondering, this is how you disable or enable camouflages in-game. It's just this little settings wheel down here, and you can do that for space, Halloween, Rogue Wave, decorative stuff, historical stuff, but in custom ships here, this blue archive thing. So if I click that, suddenly the camo is back. We can see everything. I don't find this very interesting. I don't like the look of it. It's subjective, obviously, but notice the ship names have changed here as well. So nice to see that that is also there. So it's not some weird name. It's a little bit more normal when you do remove that additional content slider. Very nice to see that as an option. For now, though, the Colonna is awesome. It is really, really good. I think it's going to be a little bit squishy if you're not great with positioning and brawling play. But if you're used to that sort of thing, you can mitigate that weakness of HP and armor. The firepower here is absolutely incredible, and the utility of the smoke is so much fun. As always, would recommend the Admiral bundle. Do not, please just don't engage with the Wishing Wharf fan. It is so awful. It's so bad. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.